Alright, today we're making the Momofuku ramen. It starts with a chicken. We're going to do a half recipe. I'm going to kind of break this chicken into two parts. And I'm going to save some of the spine for the TARE. So, first step is I'm going to cut out the spine. You could do this with a pair of kitchen shears as well. Just like that. I'm going to save half of this spine for the TARE and half of it's going to go into our ramen. And I'll go ahead and just split the chicken down the middle. Alright, so half we'll reserve for another use and half will go into our ramen. So this recipe makes quite a lot of TARE, which is the sauce, the salty sauce that's going to season our ramen. So we've got half the chicken back from earlier. This is the other half of the chicken. First thing I'm going to do is take the leg off, right? So we'll cut through this skin, remove the leg like so. And that leaves our breast and the wing. So I'm going to lift it up, cut through the armpit, and kind of pull back on the wing a little bit to expose the joint. And we'll cut right through the joint. And I'm going to go ahead and fold this wing up into a triangle, like that. That'll go into our TARE. And we can take the rib cage out of this breast, which is going to be perfect to finish our TARE. So I'm going to cut down through. You could take the wishbone out before you do this if you want. But using the tip of your knife, you're going to pull back the breast and just run the knife along the breastbone. I'm going to work around the shoulder bone there. And we're just using the tip of our knife to expose the rib cage. Okay, so I'm going to use this kind of medium-sized saucepan to roast the bones in, but you can use whatever you want. Okay, the next step is we're going to do this in a pressure cooker. I've got an Instant Pot here, and I've got 3 quarts of water in it, and a little piece of kombu here, about 3-inch piece of kombu that's been rinsed, and we're going to put that into our broth. We're just going to let that soak for about 10 minutes. All right, 10 minutes is up. We're going to remove our kombu, so I'll just kind of fish it out. Now we're going to add about 30 grams of dried shiitakes, or about 1 cup. And I'm going to put the lid back on. In a regular pot, you'd simmer this for about 30 minutes. I'm going to pressure cook this for about 5 minutes, once it comes up to pressure. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes at pressure. So we're going to let the pressure out of the Instant Pot. We'll pop the lid open. We'll remove the shiitakes. And we're going to add half of our chicken and half of the backbone. Alright, after washing my hands, I'll put the lid back on. And we'll bring this to high pressure for 30 minutes. This will be an hour if you're doing traditional stock pot. Okay, and I've got my oven heating up to 400 degrees. And we've got about 2.5 pounds of pork spare ribs here. So I'm just going to kind of cut them in half. And that should be good. I'm going to roast them in the oven for about an hour. We'll turn them over after 30 minutes. After about a half hour at pressure, our chicken looks like it's cooked all the way through, and the meat is soft and wants to fall away from the bone. In fact, it wants to fall apart. Look at that. it wants to fall apart just picking it up out of the stock pot. Okay, we're going to add our roasted pork bones. They look nice. Yeah, those look good. Now if you're using an instant pot, you want to be careful not to go above the max line, which we're just about maxed out right now. So be careful not to go over that or bad things could happen. I've defatted this pan and now I've got it over high heat. I'm going to deglaze it just a little bit because why not? So I like this flat wooden spoon for this job. But you could use any wooden spoon that you have. There you go, that's all there is to it. Flat wooden spoon. Now I'm just going to add the liquid right into our pot. Lastly, we're going to add about 8 ounces of good bacon. And that puts us right at our max line. We don't want to go any more than that. We're going to cook this for about 15 minutes and then we'll remove the bacon. Now it's time to fish out the bacon. We're just going to carefully remove this. We're going to leave the pork bones in though. Then I'm going to take a moment to skim some of the fat off the top of this broth. Alright, that looks a little bit nicer. We're going to seal it back up and pressure cook this for another hour, maybe hour and a half. Alright, my chicken backs are out of the oven for the TARE. So we're going to deglaze with about, I'm only going to make about a quarter of this recipe, so we just need about a quarter cup sake. So I'm going to deglaze with that. Okay, I warmed it back up. So now I'm going to deglaze it. Now we're going to do about a quarter of a cup of mirin. And we're going to do about a half a cup of light soy sauce. And a little bit of black pepper. Alright, then we're going to put this on the stove top, bring it to a boil, and simmer it for about an hour. We don't want it to get too dry, but just keep an eye on it and simmer it on very low heat. Okay, so I got our TARE over high heat right now. We're bringing it to a boil. I would like this to be in a smaller saucepan, but you can see on the back of the stove I've got another TARE for a vegan recipe going. So there's not quite as much liquid in here as I would like. So I'm going to do a couple things about that. I'm going to cover it and I'm going to simmer it for a long time. That'll help to keep it from drying out. And then I'm going to flip the chicken parts in there every few minutes. And that should help to sort of even out the cooking a little bit. Alright, so I got a little chunk of pork shoulder here. Just going to do a little bit of salt and a little bit of sugar on it. And I'm going to put it in our bag. We're going to put this in our water bath, and I've sealed up the entire bag. Make sure you're using Ziploc freezer bags. And I'm going to hold the corner open and submerge it. And the water is going to push all of the air out of the bag. And right as the last corner goes down, I'll seal it up. And it looks like it's vacuum sealed. We're going to start this. We're going to do 68 Celsius for 24 hours. Okay, it's been about 2 hours. I'm going to do another round of skimming fat off the top. Now I'm going to add 1/2 onion, 1 large carrot, chopped up, and about 6 scallions, rough chopped. I'm going to put the lid back on. We're going to cook this for another 20 minutes. The pork TARE looks great. You want it to be just slightly syrupy, and we're going to drain it. The chicken TARE, I should say. That looks great. You don't need a lot of this. This is just what you're going to season your ramen with. So I'm going to add it to a jar. Again, you could add this to a squeeze bottle. I'm going to keep mine in a jar. Right. Our pork broth is ready to strain. It looks great. I pulled out the pork bones. Now we're going to strain the rest through a sieve. And our broth is finished. Looks great. It's time to do our bamboo. So I've got a small can, 8-ounce can of bamboo shoots that I've drained and rinsed really well. To that, we're going to add just a little bit of veg oil, or grapeseed oil would be nice if you have it. A little splash of the light soy sauce. A little splash of sesame oil. And I've got a little Thai chili here. I'm going to just kind of slice up just a little bit of that, maybe not even the whole thing. It's quite spicy. We'll add that. All right, and then we're just gonna stew this for about 20 minutes until the bamboo is nice and tender. Okay, so it's time to do our slow poached egg for the ramen. And according to the Momofuku recipe, you get a large pot of boiling water and put it on the stove top over low heat, and you would use your instant read thermometer to keep it between 140 and 145. So right now our sous vide bath is going to be at 63 Celsius, right, which is about 147 Fahrenheit. And that's going to make the yolk not quite solid, but not quite liquid. I like to have my eggs in a whisk like this. You could use a bigger whisk if you wanted to do more eggs, but I like it because it keeps them from floating around the bath and possibly cracking, and it makes it easy to take them in and out. So there you go, 45 minutes either sous vide or on the stovetop. Okay, so since we couldn't get pork belly this week, we're going to saute up a couple pork cheeks, or jowls. So they're going to be kind of fatty and kind of replace the pork belly. Just going to lay them in the pan in the oil, and I'm not going to move them. And I'm going to cover them for the first few minutes of cooking. Alright, I'm going to salt the other side of these and flip them over. That's a nice sear, that's what you want to see. We'll cover and continue to brown the other side. Alright, once they've browned on both sides, we're going to add a little bit of water. You could add beer here or whatever you want. So we're going to braise them down, lower the heat, and let them cook 10 to 20 minutes. Alright, so after about 10 minutes, you can see most of the water is gone. I'm just going to glaze these with a little bit of soy sauce. Alright, they're pretty well glazed. I'll take them out. Looking good. Okay, we've got our pork jowl here. It's been glazed. It's still a little warm, but we're going to just give it a nice thin slice. There we go, just like that. To finish off our sous vide poached eggs, we got our 2 eggs here. We've got a perforated spoon here. I'm just going to crack this egg directly into the spoon. Now, there's 2 layers of whites inside of the egg. One's kind of a thin layer and one's a bit thicker. And we're going to lose the sort of the outside thin layer, which won't be cooked all the way through. But we'll gently crack this out into the spoon. You see there's some thin egg whites still left in the shell. That's okay. I've got some simmering water over here, and I like to just lower it into the simmering water for just a few seconds to firm up the whites on the outside of the egg. we go. That should do it. It doesn't take long at all. I'm going to just set it on the towel to absorb water. And we'll just slide it out here onto the plate. Now you can trim up that egg just a little bit if you want. And that's our sous vide poached egg. There's just the yolk. So the advantage is that you don't have to peel these eggs for your ramen, and they look really nice. And when you cook them sous vide or you slow cook them and you're careful about the temperature, you get a 63-degree yolk, which is halfway between a sauce and a liquid. So when you cut into it, it looks like this. See that? It's like gelatinous. Not quite a solid, not quite a liquid. Gorgeous. Okay, we're going to cook a little bit of asparagus to go with our ramen, so I'm just going to kind of cut the tips off here. I'll trim the ends where they snap. And I'll cut them at a nice bias angle, nice and thin. We want thin slices here. You could put this asparagus in raw. I'm going to saute it just a little bit. Alright, we're going to talk about slicing scallions for garnish. We're going to do a very thin sliced scallion. You want a sharp knife for this. If you use a dull knife, you're going to bruise the scallions and they're going to turn brown, which is not good. So, I like to start by taking one of the green parts, and you can kind of flatten this out a little bit. And we're going to cut these on an extreme bias, very, very thinly. They should be about that thin when you do them right. So again, you flatten this out, cut them on an extreme bias. Okay, once we got those cut, I got a bowl of cold water here. And we're going to put them in the bowl of cold water and just let them soak for just a few seconds. They don't need to soak very long. And then I like to pull them out and put them on a paper towel or a kitchen towel. That's what they should look like when you're done. Okay, it is finally time to assemble our ramen. Alright, our water is boiling a little bit. I'm going to turn it down. And we're going to drop 4 ounces of our ramen noodles in the water. I've got a strainer in here, but you could strain these later if you wanted to. We're going to cook these for 90 seconds. Next goes in our broth, about 1.5 cups. Now we're going to season this with TARE. You might have to warm up your TARE a little bit. I like a couple good spoonfuls of this. Your ramen should be just almost too salty as a good bowl of ramen. So TARE is going to add nice color to that. I'm going to give my noodles a stir. Now normally you would put fat on top of your ramen, but the bamboo and the TARE is going to have a little bit of fat, and there's so much pork that this ramen is going to have plenty of flavorful fat on top. You shouldn't have to worry about it. Alright, our noodles are looking done. I'm going to give them a shake, and we'll add them to our ramen. I'm going to kind of center the noodles just a little bit. Depending on how much boiling water you have, your ramen noodles are going to take anywhere from these have been taking 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going to add a little bit of the pulled pork, the sous vide pulled pork. And in a restaurant you'd have gloves on for this. Our jowl meat. We're going to add a few of the spicy bamboo shoots. We're going to add the egg. We're going to add the asparagus over here. 2 sheets of nori, about 3 by 3. We're going to tuck those down the side, like that. And of course, our scallions will just kind of pile right up on top like that. That is our Momofuku ramen.